Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So, I'm going to be talking about the topic don't allow your trauma to silence you. And so, this was actually a culmination of a couple of conversations that I was having, one with my therapist and one with a good friend of mine. And this topic of trauma and voices being silent was just really on my heart. And so I wanted to address this in a live because I understand that trauma can cause so many different responses. Some people eat in response to trauma. Some people shop in response to trauma. Some people shut down because of trauma. Some people silence their voice because of trauma. And so today we're going to be talking about that topic. Don't let your trauma silence you. And so please be sure to hit share on this video, like this video, love this video, share it with your friends, because what we're going to be talking about is truly going to bless you. And if you see me looking over, it's because I was taking some notes, just some thoughts that were running through my head, and I wanted to make sure that I covered the things that I wanted to talk about. And so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is sometimes the trauma that we experience actually stems from an incident that we might not even remember, or we might not be able to trace it back to. And so one of the things that this is full transparency, like literally the Lord has me on this journey of sharing to you how He has been a good father to me, so that you will be able to have hope in your own life to be able to get over whatever it is that you are getting over. So let me be the first to tell you that this is scary to me because I'm just so used to, being transparent to a certain extent, but really trying to put on that good face to let you know that everything is okay. So to be in this space where He's just like, okay, no, share some of the things that you feel uncomfortable sharing, it's kind of weird to me, but I'm doing it out of obedience, and I know that someone else is going through the same thing. So yeah, welcome to the journey. So I wanted to let you know that one of the things that I have been really working through lately is when I first lost my voice. And you might be thinking like, wait a second, Aisha, I see you doing Facebook Lives. Like, you have a YouTube channel, you have a blog, a social media presence, you teach workshops, you do speaking engagements. When did you lose your voice? And so one of the things that I realize is that I speak, but to a certain extent. I stop short of saying some of the things that I'm called to say. I stop short at being as bold as the way God has called me to be, right? And I remember running from this single motherhood empowerment journey because I did not want to face my own realities of being a single mom. I did not want to face the shame that I felt along with being a single mom. I did not want to feel the hurt of the disappointment of what I thought family would look like for me in terms of how things would be in terms of raising my kids. So that is a way in which I silence my voice. And the other thing is that being silent when the Lord is calling me to speak up, because and it really, I'm just trying to be like, okay, so how am I going to explain this? So I remember when I was 12, I was teased for wearing non-name brand clothes and non-name brand shoes. I remember we used to shop at Payless for shoes, and so I remember being at Payless picking out these tennis shoes, and I was so excited that I wore them out of the store, of course, after my parents paid for them. And I went to summer camp, just so excited to wear these shoes to summer camp. And when I was in the giant activity room, this one boy looked at me and was just like, ew, you're wearing buddies. And everyone laughed at me, like in the whole room, everyone laughed. And they were looking at me. And at that point, to me, I did not know what buddies were. I did not know that there was a difference between name brand shoes and non-name brand shoes. But in that moment, I was finally confronted with the reality of what that was, and it hurt. And so from that moment, and I've talked about it so many times in my blog and in workshops in terms of how this impacted how I spent money. and how I ended up going through this cycle of racking up credit card debts, getting really good at paying them off, but being unable to keep those debts paid off because I was spending in response to trauma. How I managed my money was in response to trauma of being teased as a child for wearing non-name brand shoes. But what I didn't understand until a lot later, more recently, is the impact that had on how I trusted my voice, how I trusted my vision, how I trusted in the goals and the dreams and the ideas that I have, my ability to be able to trust in the things that matter to me, right? And so what happened is from that moment, not only did I catch the message that in order to not be teased, I have to look the same as everyone else. I have to dress the same as everyone else. I have to be able to do the same things as everyone else. If everyone else is going on vacation, here I am too. If everyone else is going to a restaurant, oh, I'm there too, because I don't want to miss out, because I didn't want to be singled out and be teased and be ridiculed. But what also it taught me is that I did not want to be ridiculed for the things that mattered to me. I did not want to be ridiculed for something that I enjoyed and something that I thought was important or something that I thought mattered. Because to that 12-year-old me, those shoes mattered to me. Those shoes were something like I picked out, I loved, they mattered to me. But the same thing that mattered to me, the same thing that I loved, was a thing that brought shame and condemnation and ridicule. And so for me, what happened is I internalized it to say, you know what? The things that matter to me, I can't be too vocal about it, because if I do, it might invite shame. The things that I think are important, I can't really speak up about them, because guess what? It might invite ridicule. And so I learned to silence my voice. And so I remember being told by friends when I would speak up, when I would challenge conventional wisdom, when I would say, okay, now let's think about this a little bit differently. Let's try and see these from all different sides. And I remember somebody telling me, like, you know what, if I didn't know that you had such a good heart, I wouldn't like you as a person, because I don't like some of the things that you say. And I'm just like, wait, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like, let's not jump to conclusions. Let's think about these from so many different perspectives, so that way we don't condemn people or judge people or, be unkind to people, right? Just coming from that place and having the audacity to ask someone to think about what they're thinking about and to think about the things that they say was something that began to invite division into my relationships. And so for me, out of the protection of relationships, not wanting to hurt anybody else's feelings or not wanting to invite condemnation for myself, I was silent. And I remember people used to tell me, and I used to take so much pride in this, they'd be like, oh, Aisha's like Switzerland. She's like Switzerland. She's just neutral. And I felt like, okay, because I judged myself based upon what other people have said. I became what other people have said. I'm like, oh, so I'm supposed to be Switzerland. I'm supposed to be neutral. So that means, can't have an opinion, can't have a thought, can't be an independent thinker. I just had to be in Switzerland, which meant that I had to be whoever someone needed me to be at that point in time, and trying to figure out how to be whoever needed me to be it caused me to lose my own identity, my own voice, and who it was that I knew myself to be. So again, you see the trauma of being teased as a child impacting my adult relationships and me silencing my voice because I just needed to blend in. My therapist said becoming invisible. So I was visible, but yet I was invisible because I was shrinking back. And then you add the trauma on top of it of being left when I was 4 months pregnant and being told at the time that I was going to fail in everything that I did. I was just like, oh my gosh, so what am I going to do? Am I even supposed to try anymore? Because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fall on my face. I didn't want to fail. And so what happened was, slowly but surely, I began to shrink back. When I got on the edge of success, I ran back and hid because I was afraid of what success would bring. I was afraid of what being visible would bring. I was afraid of what walking in my anointing, my gifts, and my power would bring. Because I remember back when I was 12, when I walked in what I thought excited me, it invited teasing. And I remember when I would speak up in friend circles, it invited ridicule, right? And when I didn't, it brought peace. It brought peace. And so I just learned over time to be able to silence my voice. And then I wanted to bring up the topic of shame, because sometimes in our journeys, in our trauma, we feel shame about what it is that we went through. We feel shame about parts of our journey or we blame ourselves for certain things, and that shame can be used to silence us. And so I think back about my story of single motherhood. And full disclosure, for those of you guys who know me and we've been connected for a long time, you know forever that I've been promising you this book for about 3 years now. That it is written, it is edited, but I have not released it. It's literally on my computer and I have not released it. It's been there for years. And what I've had to come to the conclusion of, that the whole reason why I didn't want to publish a book was because of shame. It was embarrassment. It was because I wanted to be able to control what you guys knew about my single motherhood journey. And I did not want to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, the tears, the impact that it had on my finances, going from nearly an 800 credit score to having poor credit because of the financial bottom that was knocked up out from under me when I became a single mom. And having to respond to that all at the same time while teaching people about personal finances, and the shame of feeling like a fraud. Like, how are you even going to have the audacity to sit up here and teach other people about personal finances when this is what you're going through? And the messages of shame and condemnation that I continued to tell myself, which ultimately led me to start hiding again because I did not believe I was capable and qualified anymore. That same person who for years taught personal finance workshops, helped work with clients to help them get financially free, for me to be able to develop an asset portfolio I had at the time, to be able to develop the savings account that I had at the time, to being able to do all of those things. See, I was not a different person, right? I still had the same experience. I still had the same impact that I had. I still had the same voice, but I looked at things through the lens of my trauma and allowed that to impact who I knew myself to be, rather from looking at it from a point, if you did it before, you can do it again. I shrunk back and hid out of shame. And for a long time, this is really the first time that I'm truly addressing this, right? Because like I said, God told me to tell you guys how he was a father to me to give you hope. And so much of why I didn't show up the way I should, it was because I was embarrassed. And please don't allow me to cry. I'm wearing mascara. I was embarrassed about the journey that I had been on. I was embarrassed about what it was that I had to go through. And I felt that I needed to hide that in order to maintain credibility and to be able to continue to transform lives. And when I felt like it became too much of a burden to hide, I just stopped. And the Lord used so many people to minister to me, to be like, look, people need your voice. People need your story. And I'm like, but you don't understand what I've been through. You don't understand what I've been through. It's no way that I can get up here and use my voice to be an encouragement to other people. Who am I to do it? How am I qualified at this point to do it? Do you know what I've been through? Do you know how much it hurts? And people will be like, this is why you need to show up and tell people. Because you did not go through what you went through for no reason. It was for the deliverance of other people. And when you realize that, then you will be so much more effective. And what someone told me is they said it's a difference between you sitting up here teaching workshops from a place of an expert, right? Because building up a $30,000 savings account, being able to do all of this stuff, building up the assets that I had based upon overcoming trauma and shame that I felt 20 years earlier. Being able to finally reconcile with being teased for wearing non-name brand clothes. But they said it's a whole nother thing for you to sit up there and talk to single moms about what it is that you've been through. You know what it's like to be at the bottom financially as an adult, not as a child. You know what it's like. And you know what it's like to build back up again and get out of it. You know what it's like to dig yourself out the ditch. You know what it's like. And you can teach people from a place of power and from a place of experience that you were not able to do previously. They said it makes you more relatable. So stop hiding from the shame. Stop hiding from it and use your voice to transform the people who God has called you to transform. Stop being silent. Stop hiding. Stop hiding. And I'm telling you, just like what people told me, stop hiding. Because when we look at Romans 8:28, right? When we look at Romans 8:28, we say it all the time as Christians, as believers. We say God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. We say that, right? But do we really believe it? Because when the bottom falls out, when things get hard, when things get challenging, do you shrink back or do you stand boldly in power? When you get out of that situation, do you get up there and share your testimonial to other people so that they too can get delivered? Because we're delivered by the power of our testimony. God has a plan. Exactly. God has a plan. When the woman at the well met Jesus in her shame because of how she was living, and Jesus called her out in love over it, she did not keep it silent. She ran back to her village, the same village that ridiculed her, the same village that shamed her because of her experience and because of her actions. She ran back and said, I met the Messiah, the one who was able to tell me about everything I have ever done in the past. And he showed me, he told me, and he offered me living water. It was through her testimony. The testimony of the one who was ridiculed, who was able to bring deliverance and salvation to that village. And so it doesn't matter what your testimony is. It doesn't matter what you've been through. God is using it. You just have to believe it. You have to come out of that place of shame. You have to come out of that place of hiding and allow him to use the testimony that he gave you, because it's no accident that you have the testimony that you have. It does not matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter. And I'm telling you this from personal experience because I've gone through some stuff. I have. And God, I see how God has used it. And so I just want to encourage you to go back to that place where you lost your voice and ask the Lord to restore it for you. Ask the Lord to restore it for you. Don't allow the opinions of other people to allow you to shrink back from the destiny work that God has for you. Don't let the opinions of other people or your own feelings of condemnation and shame cause you to hide from the purpose that God has for you. Because I'm telling you, people are depending on you. People need your testimony so that they can have hope. See, people need you to bring light to dark places. So speak up. Don't be afraid. Share your story. Share your story. I remember hosting a Bible study in Clubhouse not that long ago. And one of the women, I was talking about really remembrance, because if you listen to me, I talk a lot about remembrance and how remembrance allows you to get through hard times because you see what God did in the past, and you can And you'll be able to see what he did in the past, so that way you can have faith and hope for the future and for the current. And when she asked me, she said, so what if you can't trace God anywhere in your life? And I knew she was holding on to faith because she was on the Bible study, right? And she asked the call. She asked the question. She said, well, what if you can't trace him because of everything that you've gone through and all you can see is pain? And I said, if that has been your life, then here's a couple of things that you can do. I said, look at the Bible and find stories of hope. But in addition to looking at the Bible, look at the testimony of other people. Find testimonies from other people who have been through what you have been through, and read and listen to their testimonies about how they have overcome and how God has delivered them. And when you look at those testimonies from other people, it will give you hope in your current circumstances and your current situations. And I say that, and I just want to conclude by saying that is, how can people find hope in your and how can people find hope in finding testimonies from people who've been through what they went through if they don't share yours, if you're silent? So don't allow your trauma to silence your voice. Don't allow your trauma to silence your voice. Speak up. Be heard. Share your story. And allow God to heal you from that place so that you can walk in purpose and in power to do the work that he has called you to do. Because so many of us have ideas. God has a purpose and plan for all of us. But so many of us are looking at the purpose and plan God has for us through the lens of trauma, through the lens of hurt, pain, suffering, shame, and condemnation. But when we allow God to heal those parts of us that we, in some respects, buried so deeply that we didn't even know existed anymore, or when we allow God to heal our hearts, the parts that we don't want him to have access to, that's when we're able to speak up again. That's when we regain our voice. That's when we allow ourselves to be defined by who God says we are and not who people say we are. That's when we get our power. That's when we walk in our authority. And that is when we can make true change. But we first have to allow God to heal us. First, we have to allow him to reveal the areas that we need to be healed. Then we have to give him permission to heal us, because Jesus is a gentleman. He stands at the door and knocks. We see it in Revelations. He stands at the door and knocks. It's up to us to open the door to let him in. So I'm going to ask you today, will you let him in? Will you allow him to do the healing work in your life so that way you can get your voice back and speak up and be the change you want to see in this world? And so if you are struggling with fear, worry, and anxiety, then I encourage you to head over to myideatoincome.com, myideatoincome.com, to pick up your copy of the Chaos to Calm devotional. It's a 25-day devotional that helps single moms to move from chaos to calm, to peace of mind, by overcoming fear, worry, and anxiety, some of the negative thoughts that swirl around in their minds. So I encourage you to pick that up. And even if you're not a single mom, that devotional will still bless you. So yeah, head to myideatoincome.com, myideatoincome.com, to get your copy of the Chaos to Calm devotional. And I'm telling you, those are the same scriptures that the Lord used to encourage me through a very difficult period of my life. And so thank you all for watching. Thank you all for your comments. And I just pray blessings and favor upon you all. And please share this video out, because I know that this message is going to bless someone else who is sitting and hiding, who is silencing their voice because of the trauma and the experiences that they went through in life. So have a good day. Bye.